There's a moment when you know something is wrong, not logically or rationally, but internally. A quiet resistance, a tightening in the chest, and yet you obey anyway. Tonight we're not necessarily talking about rebellion. We're talking about the far more unsettling notion of obedience without conscience, and how that relates to Cimejes. Join me now in and through the Static Seance.
The whisper caught between stations, neither here nor gone. The hum of voices trapped in the wires, their confessions dissolving into static. A seance not in candlelit rooms, but on flickering screens, where the ghosts don't knock, but distort the signal. Shadows coil in the white noise. If only one dares to alter their own frequency and listen.
Cimejes, also known as Cimejes in the Ars Goetia, he appears as a marquis, a commander of legions, a leader of forces. He rides a black horse and governs spirits. He teaches grammar, logic, and rhetoric. And again, like many others, he reveals hidden things, truths buried beneath structure. And he's not a demon of chaos, he's a demon of order. But not all order is just. And that's where Cimejes becomes dangerous, because he represents the moment when structure overrides morality, when command overrides conscience, when obedience becomes corruption. So tonight we ask, when did you obey wrongly? Not when you followed rules, not when you respected authority, but when did you go along when you felt and knew something was off? You just followed anyway. In the past, what command violated you? Not necessarily something extreme. Sometimes it's subtle. Going along with a group that mocked instead of taught. Staying silent when something needed to be said. Nodding in agreement when your intuition said no. These moments don't always feel catastrophic, but they leave something behind, a residue. Because every time you betray your internal compass, you weaken your connection to it. Cimejes doesn't just represent authority. He represents the cost of following it blindly. So in the present, what authority pressures you? And it might not be a person, it could be a community, a culture, a movement, a crowd. Because authority today doesn't often look like a king. It looks like consensus. And consensus can be seductive because it feels safe, it feels aligned, it feels like belonging. But belonging without discernment is conformity. And conformity can demand something dangerous. The suspension of independent thought. And being honest about this, I still struggle with it. I've had a bad habit of following superficial crowds because they seem aligned with my values on the surface. But when you look closer, they don't want to educate. They just want to condemn. They don't want to understand. They just want to divide. And honestly, it's easy to get pulled into that because it can feel like you're standing for something. But standing for something is not the same thing as thinking about it. And that distinction matters a lot. False alignment is one of the most dangerous forms of obedience because it doesn't feel like obedience. It feels like identity. You start to believe, this is who I am. This is what I stand for. But if that identity requires you to stop asking questions, then it's not alignment, it's control. Cimejes enforces order, but not all order deserves to be enforced. One of the biggest costs of blind obedience is the loss of dialogue, because dialogue is everything. It's how we refine ideas, how we evolve, how we integrate. When you only surround yourself with agreement, you don't grow, you calcify. It becomes us versus them, right versus wrong, and the moment that happens, understanding dies. This is something I've started to understand more and more. It is incredibly important to truly communicate with opposing thoughts. Not to defeat them, not to dominate, but to understand. Because within opposition, there are pieces you do not see. And when you engage with those perspectives honestly, you don't lose your identity. You'll probably end up refining it or discovering areas of integration that you didn't see before, places of compromise, and places of deeper truth. So in the future, what refusal redeems you? Not rebellion for the sake of rebellion, but refusal rooted in integrity. The moment where you say no, not because it's easy, but because it's right, because something inside you won't allow you to comply. That is where the transformation begins. So Androphilus, he showed us where logic can trap us. Cimejes shows us where obedience can corrupt us. One is the prison of the mind, the other is the prism of the system. And both require the same key: awareness. So you feared consequence, you chose safety over truth, but obedience without conscience corrodes. It erodes your identity piece by piece, and integrity replaces compliance. You begin to act not because you were told to, but because you believe in the action itself. You choose rightly, not perfectly, but consciously. So remember, authority demands scrutiny, not rejection, scrutiny. And for me, the breakthrough has been this. By refusing to conform, I find the roads unseen. Paths that aren't dictated by crowds. Paths that don't come with immediate validation. But on those roads, something strange happens. There's peace. Not because everything is certain, but because everything is honest. And beyond that lies something deeper, of course, which is transcendence. A sense that you are no longer reacting to the world, but are actually engaging in it. So next time you feel pressure to agree, just pause. Ask yourself, do I actually believe this? Or do I just want to belong? Next time you feel resistance, don't silence it immediately. Examine it. And next time you encounter opposing views, lean in. Not defensively, but curiously. And more importantly, when the moment comes to choose with integrity, even if it cost you something, especially if it cost you something. Cimejes does not demand that you reject authority. He asks you to question it, to refine it, to hold it accountable, because order without ethics is not order, it's control. So when did you obey wrongly? And what would happen if next time you didn't?
Dark days of memory, old films that lost their once warm heart, playground misdemeanor, street corner trash play not the part, forgotten misery, time to sit no more around and dwell, your make-believe heaven.